Hello Rebrand gang, welcome to episode 46 of Rebrand Everything, the weekly graphic design show where we redesign the logo of big or famous companies. This week we're going to be rebranding Costco, and thanks to Bertie for submitting that idea over on rebrandeverything.com. Let's go. So Costco are a chain of membership-only warehouse clubs. Basically, once you're a member, you get access to the shop, which has like discounted products. Their focus is on quality and value. I've just found this video on their website, which will give you a good vibe of how the store looks and feels. The current Costco logo looks like this, and as you can see, it's a super bold and vivid logo that fits with their sort of American heritage through the sole use of red, white and blue. So although their logo is quite simple, there are a few different elements working together here, and I think the best way to work out what's going on is by rebuilding the logo from scratch. So as you can see, the main wording is set out in Futura Extra Bold, which is obviously a nice classic solid typeface. To make this fit on top of the logo, I had to stretch the text horizontally, which in my mind is an absolute no-no because typefaces are built with specific proportions, and spacing and stretching them rarely improves the look. The word wholesale beneath was also stretched, and on closer inspection the kerning in this part of the logo was quite unusual, with large gaps appearing mainly between the L and the E. This blue part of the logo changes depending on the location. For example, on the UK website the word wholesale changes to .co.uk. The final aspect of the logo are these three lines that are peeping out from behind the subtext. And now we're looking at this, does anyone feel an Adidas cross Costco collab coming up? I think these are basically here just to fill the space, as when I googled a reason for the lines there was just no explanation to be found. So once the logo is all built like this, that is all surrounded by a white stroke, and then they put that onto a grey background for the header of the website. Adding a stroke to the text like this is something I generally don't really like, as it's kind of an instant way of making a design look fiddly and complicated. Like when you've got your logo there already and then you put a stroke on it, it's kind of just doubling the amount of detail. But I guess the idea here was to make the logo red, white and blue, so it makes sense to put the white around the blue and red elements. The funny thing is, although a lot of the parts of this logo go against the sort of classic design rules, such as stretching the text, some weird kerning and like unnecessary details, its bold quirkiness seems to fit the vibe of the warehouse style stores quite well. Okay then, so now we know a little bit about Costco, let's get into the sketching stage. Okay, so after researching Costco, I started to draw out some ideas and initial concepts which could be developed to fit in with the brand. There are a few words that I kept in mind as I was creating these to sort of retain the essence of the brand, and those were basically American, club and quality. My thoughts were that the style of their current logo definitely says American wholesale, but doesn't necessarily say join the club. And as most advertising these days revolves around like emotion and connections with other humans, I thought it might be nice to create some logo options that are a little less warehouse and a little bit more like join the family, join the club. These ideas included using a C to wrap around a dot, symbolising that this customer is at the centre of Costco's world. Some other sketches were following the route of a more wholesaler style, incorporating an icon which I'm aware could be seen as additional clutter, but I'm thinking that it could be a nice addition in places such as like the mobile app icon, which currently looks very generic. And actually just looking at that again, it reminds me of the Colgate logo. It just got that similar look to it and similar colours. Another concept I found quite interesting was the idea of combining both the warehouse wholesaler vibe and the human connection by physically connecting the two in an icon. As I don't feel like every option needs an icon, some of my ideas are still in my head at this point, as trying to draw out a word mark at the sketching stage gets a little bit difficult and long-winded. I find it much easier to quickly compare fonts and styles in Illustrator instead of trying to draw out lots of different styles by hand. It just gets really time consuming, and also it's not very accurate either compared to just when you tap it out on the computer, and it's very quick and like instant feedback. So once I'd sketched all of this out, I was ready to move over to Illustrator to try and refine this explosion of ideas. I had a bit of spare time this week and I've been rereading them Austin Kleon books, the Show Your Work, Steal Like an Artist, and the other one called Keep Going. And I just kind of realised that when I was doing it, that actually this probably had played a pretty major part in me starting this actual YouTube channel. It's like this title here is like, become a documentarian of what you do. I just think that's pretty funny, like rereading it again like a couple of years on, and now that I've kind of taken a lot of advice in these books, if you want to get your creativity levels up, definitely get them. If you enjoy these videos, please don't forget to press like, as it really helps the channel out. Also, thanks for all the support on last week's video. I think we hit the 100 likes in about one day, so maybe that goal was a little bit too easy, but I will get on with that thirsty work video and upload that ASAP. Let's get on with this.
1.
So for option 1, as often with these videos, I wanted to create an evolution instead of completely starting from scratch. I played around with a few different fonts and didn't like how the S and the T sat together. There was like a weird connection that made it sort of hard to kern. Like if you make it too spaced, it was like a massive gap between them, and when you tighten them up, the edge of the T and the edge of the S touched, just looks ugly. I found an Adobe font called Azo Sans, which had slightly different letter shapes that meant the clash between the two letters wasn't so intense. I made up a few different text layouts, but nothing was really setting the world on fire, so I decided to try a few different uses of the 3 blue lines on the previous logo. After a while, it was clear that adding lines wasn't really helping anyone. However, after a few more options, I realised that this option was supposed to be an update to the current logo instead of a completely new concept. Because of this, I grabbed the current logo and essentially rebuilt it, but without all the parts that I didn't like. So the final option was all caps instead of them small caps, as I'm not a fan of the small caps, as it always makes the text look kind of uncomfortable, especially when it's stretched like the original logo. And the text was also kerned to retain small gaps between the letters and not stretched from its original proportions. I then added a thinner version of the same font for the word wholesale, and after a few more finishing touches, this produced a nicely cleaned up version of the current Costco logo.
2.
So option 2 came together a lot quicker than option 1 did, as I had a much clearer concept in my head and on the sketchpad. The idea behind this is the letter C symbolises Costco, and the dot that is sitting over the C is symbolising someone joining the Costco club, and to make it look like the dot was over the C instead of just crashing into it, I just used a simple white stroke on that. So another phrase that is relevant to this design is when people say join our circle or join in an inner circle. I feel like the icon is a super simple but effective way of symbolising this connection between like customer and company. I had to get the font looking balanced with the thickness of the lines in the icon, as well as the size and proportions of the icon and word mark. I felt like the icon sat best over on the left hand side of the text, as it felt a little bit too tall and cumbersome. When it was directly on top, it looked like it might topple over.
3.
So initially I was slightly worried about option 3 looking like one of those stock library graphic set icons, but I thought I'd go for it anyway, as I thought the concept could be cool. The idea was to combine the human element with the building shape to create an upward arrow to pretty much symbolise that the customer's life will literally be upgraded by being a member of Costco. Again, the concept came together quite quickly, as I had a pretty decent sketch drawn out and a pretty clear vision in my head. As this was such a humanised and friendly design compared to the current Costco logo, I made a few adjustments, such as using all lowercase letters, rounding the edges of the icon, and using a font with soft or rounded edges so that the icon and text fitted together nicely. I feel like the final logo does have positive connotations, with the upwards facing arrow and the 3 characters positioned in such a way that it looks like the character in the middle is like a new member joining the existing members. And whilst this is a lot to fit into a logo, I feel like it's simple enough that it will scale nicely and generally work across all applications.
4.
So for option 4, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and take a different path and give the logo a bit of vintage appeal. I thought including the EST 1983 would add some trust and heritage to the design, so I needed to choose a shape and typefaces to match up with that. I started out with some basic shapes, but they weren't like the vision in my head and I wasn't sure why. So when I googled the term retro badge logos, I found this little wine logo set and realised that this like elongated or stretched hexagon was close to what I was thinking, like what was in my mind. So with that, I developed the text within this shape and then realised that I hadn't got any of the secondary colour, which I still feel is important for the brand recognition, as they've built up such a sort of strength in them 3 colours like red, white and blue. After some jiggling around, I got a layout which I was happy with and offset the path of the main lozenge shape to create a blue stroke, which I think has some nice classic appeal. I'm not sure if the logo immediately says wholesale through its design, but perhaps it's different enough to stand out amongst its competitors.
5.
So the idea behind option 5 was to create something that had an established American company feel and go all in on that idea. I wanted to make something timeless, so it looks like it's been around for a long time and it can be trusted. It always feels a little bit dangerous to me to create something in a style for like another country, because it's too easy to slip into that cliche zone where a design ends up looking like a cheesy over-the-top visual of what like an outsider thinks a country is like. My concern is that I would make something that would be the equivalent of an American designer seeing a company from England or from London and assuming they'll want a red bus and like Big Ben in the logo, which is obviously not what you want. So I'm just super conscious of that as I'm going forward with this. Anyway, enough about my international concerns, let's talk about the process. I started by developing ideas around a star becoming part of the negative space in the letter C. After a few variations on this, I wasn't entirely sure it was working, as it was reminding me of the Turkish flag and generally wasn't fitting the vision that I had in my mind. After some more development, I had an icon that I was more happy with, but I didn't like how the red and blue was touching as it causes that fuzzy look between the two colours. I was developing text ideas alongside the icons throughout this whole process, and I ended up settling on Euro-style bold combined with Euro-style extended for the word wholesale. This contrast between the two fonts ensures a good type hierarchy, as when they're both bold it felt a little bit like a fight for attention. A lot of the comments on last week's video were either appreciating or asking me about how I made the mock-ups for the Under Armour logo to be shown on them actual videos of the t-shirt moving around. It wasn't actually as hard as it might have appeared, as I found a nice mock-up website called Placeit, which is basically a website where you upload the logo and it makes the mock-up for you without having to even open Photoshop. As well as the videos, they also have lots of static mock-ups which I've used for this project, and I'm sure I'll use in the future as well. It's saving me so much time each week, and that just helps you show the logo in a real life use case. So if you want to check these out, I'll put a link in the description down below. Okay then, Rebrand gang, just before I show you them final options, I wanted to remind you to press the little button up here and vote for your favourite logo, and then head straight down to the comments below and let me know why that was your favourite and what you might have done differently. Remember to press like on this video if you haven't already, and press subscribe if you want videos like this every single week, and make sure you put the little bell on if you want to be the first to watch and get that notification. Okay then, Rebrand gang, let's see them final options.